Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be sort of like a December favorites, but it's mostly made up of my books that I read in December. So I'm going to be calling it like my December books. I also need to say that my phone was just charged overnight and it was at like 95% when I got out of bed, and then while I washed my face and gathered all my stuff to come film here, it's now at 27%. I didn't even use it. It's just that freaking cold outside today. It is 21 degrees. Beautiful. Okay. So, I guess I'll just get over with the stuff that doesn't have to do with books. Really, there's probably only one. Actually, there's two. The first one is a podcast. I'm not a huge podcast listener just because I like to, I don't know, look somewhere. On the train, I only listen to it when I am standing and I can't hold my book, or I finished my book, or sometimes I listen to it when I'm journaling now. I like it so much that I'm like finding time to listen to it, but it's called My Favorite Murder. It's a bit sinister, but I have always been a true crime like fanatic. I've always been interested in shows, like detective shows like SVU, Criminal Minds, and books and all that. And so I would look up books written by FBI agents about serial killers, and I had my whole phase of only reading books about serial killers. And so I found this podcast, and it's by Georgia Hardstark and Karen Kilgariff, and they just talk about murder. There is a theme most of the time, most weeks, and they decide like, oh, murders from the 80s, and then they find like gruesome murders within that time period. And there's also this, they have an email set up, myfavoritemurder@gmail.com, where people can send in their own hometown murders and their experience with it. I'm thinking of doing my own. It's always been stuck in my head, but there's like 100 episodes plus, I think, and I'm still at like the second minisode, so I'm still catching up, but I really enjoy it. And it's actually a comedy podcast. They're both like, one of them is a stand-up comedian or something, so they keep it light. They know that it's like crazy, and they're both like anxious people, but they just like murder, and there's a huge following for it, so don't be like creeped out and thinking that you're the only one. My second thing is Peaky Blinders. It came out, I hadn't even realized I had finals week, so I was just so caught up in that I wasn't even checking Netflix. But I love Peaky Blinders since season 1. Cillian Murphy just freaking kills me. He's so handsome, and I love his accent in the show. But Peaky Blinders is the name of the show, and it's also the name of a family like gang slash business. And Cillian Murphy, his character Tommy, is the middle brother and also the one who runs everything. The aunt is involved, and all the brothers are obviously grown up. They get married, and it's just life about their family. It's very violent because they are a gang, and they did disband for a bit, or they tried to like legitimize by creating their own business. So that's what I've been binge watching. But it's a British show, so there's only like 6 episodes a season, so I'm like trying to go through it slowly. But definitely when I'm done with season 4, I want to watch back from the beginning. Finally, let's get into the books. They're all in order from when I like finished them. So my very first book, I'm just looking at my phone here, is called How to Be Single by Liz Tuccio, I think is her name. Yes, it is the same as the movie, but the movie was only based on the book, so it's really quite different. My sister watched the movie and we talked about it, so I saw it in the library thinking that it would be the same, and I wanted to watch the movie just because like Rebel Wilson is in it and stuff, and she's a really funny actress. but apparently it's really different. So the book is about this one woman named Julie. She works at she's like a publicist or something, and she had a friend who was newly divorced, or like newly separated, because he like cheated on her and was in love with like a Brazilian dancer. So she gathers all her single friends and they're like going out, and then they realize that like, what does it mean to be single? Like, how do you be single? So Julie presents this idea to her publicist, or her boss, and she decides to travel around the world studying how women in different cultures are single. And so obviously she like travels a lot. She went into Australia, France, China, Bali, kind of, and she just studies. I don't know how like culturally accurate it is, but it was pretty cool seeing her travel and like seeing how in some ways similar we might be, but also really different. And it's also called How to Be Single, which was awkward reading on the train, but it also in some ways is sort of a love story. It's pretty funny, and I would say pretty darn relatable even, because in this day and age with like everyone being so quick to hook up, or that's like the idea behind, or not even the idea, like the stigma around like dating apps like Tinder and things like that. So it's just interesting to see like how people, and these are also like older women in their late 30s, so it's interesting to see how like the dating world affects all these women. My next book is called Heartburn by Nora Ephron. Nora Ephron is a very, very famous screenwriter, if you didn't know. She's done a lot of projects, and I think Sleepless in Seattle is probably one of her most memorable ones. I'm not sure, don't quote me on that. But this book is apparently, I looked it up, and it is a autobiographical memoir, novel. Is it autobiographical? Okay, so it's about this woman named Rachel Samstadt, and she's like 7 months pregnant, and she realizes that in this book also her husband is in love with someone else. And she's like this gross woman. She's like too tall, her lungs are super long, and she's also married, so they're both having an affair. She is very conflicted because she hates him and she wants him, she doesn't like want him anymore, but also she's 7 months pregnant and she's like trying to win him back. So it's kind of this complicated story about her like on and off feelings for her husband, or almost ex, and her separation, going through that while also being pregnant. And it's told through like recipes, because she's a cookbook author, and sometimes like therapy sessions that she goes to, and it's kind of quirky and funny. I mean, it is Nora Ephron, so that was that. Next is The Leftovers by Tom Perrotta. Apparently he has an HBO show after this book. This book was so weird. What happened was kind of the rapture, but it like no one knew for sure, and so it was just called like The Disappearance or something, and really just randomly one day all like a huge bunch of people just disappeared. So it follows alongside mainly one family, or one guy who ends up being the mayor of the town to bring everyone together, but it follows around the whole family basically, and it's kind of just like the aftermath of the disappearance and how people are dealing with it. There's a cult that has taken the vow of silence that some people have joined to like grieve in silence or whatever, but they have to smoke, they have to wear all white, and they sometimes like follow people, which is really creepy. They're like non-violent and they just watch from a distance, but it's like really like uncomfortable. And it's just about like how everyone's dealing with this grief. I didn't like the way it ended. I didn't understand. It kind of just felt like a cliffhanger to me, like there wasn't enough closure, but it was an interesting read. Next, the last two books are by Jojo Moyes. I need to make a correction. I absolutely love her writing, but I've been pronouncing her name wrong. It's not Moyes, it's Jojo Moyes, like M-O-I-Z. And I read 2 books by her. I actually borrowed 3, but I couldn't finish one. But that, I'll get to that later. So the first one was Silver Bay by Jojo Moyes, and this book was really sweet. A woman named Liza who escaped from England with her daughter into Australia. Silver Bay is where her aunt lives, her Aunt Kathleen. Aunt Kathleen runs a hotel called Silver Bay Hotel because that's where they live, and they have the hotel, and they also run a business of like whale chasing, which is just like whale sightseeing, and also for dolphins they do the same thing. And they're very much environmentalists. They do it in a way that doesn't disturb them. They are just very respectful of the sea life. And then there's a man named Mike who comes from England. He's like big in finance, and he is about to destroy everything that Liza has created and the home that she's created there for her daughter, and like the safety, this safety hub that she created for her. That was weird. And so there's a truck outside. It's really bothering me. I hope you can't hear it. But anyway, there's like this huge environmental problem of because the Silver Bay Hotel is not doing very well, and so they can only get so much money from like whale chasing and sightseeing and things like that. And there's like these huge cruise ships coming in that are bothering the sea life, and just everything is going wrong. And I really like Jojo Moyes' style of writing because she has these different narrations, so you can see from the perspective of all the characters, like the important characters, which is really cool. Last book for this month, I finished it and returned it last night, and I forgot to take a video of it, like a clip of it. It's called The Ship of Brides. This is probably like my least favorite book by her so far, just because I was rushing to finish it by the end of this year, and I feel like I wasn't fully comprehending it, so that's like on me, but I'll get to everything later. So first of all, the plot is also based in Australia. This thing that was done after World War II called War Brides, where these women from Australia were married to British soldiers, and then they were shipped off to England after the war was over to reunite with their husbands. And apparently Jojo Moyes' grandmother was a war bride from Australia. Now Silver Bay makes sense because it's based in Australia. And so this book supposedly focuses on one woman named Frances Mackenzie. She is a nurse, so she's just on the boat to find a career for herself in England, and she's surrounded by these women in her like bunkmates on the ship, and there's 4 of them all together. There is this dark past of Frances's, and she risks exposure on the ship. There's like 600 brides, and also Marines, seamen, and engineers for the ship. So there's just a whole lot of people. It's about her like adventure on the ship. It's like a 6-week long journey to get to England. And it was just confusing for me because the main character is supposedly Frances Mackenzie, which I can understand at the end, but there were also just, this book didn't focus on, didn't have separate chapters for specific characters like her other books did, and so it would jump around from character to character, and I felt like for Frances being the main character, it focused a lot on all the other characters. I feel like the blurb on the back shouldn't have specifically like singled out Frances if they were gonna do that, and so that was just a little confusing for me. There was a lot of characters because there's 600 brides and a lot of names of engineers and Marines that you have to memorize, but in the end it's a cute love story. It was just a little confusing, but it also because I wasn't fully paying attention. And the last book I was going to read was The Horse Dancer, but I didn't get to it, but it was perfect because my sister and I are doing the Pop Sugar 2018 Reading Challenge, which is Pop Sugar gives you a huge bunch of prompts, and it's not 52 books completely, but my sister and I are doing the bonus books so that it just adds up to that, and she recommended it to me and we picked out books together, and there's a prompt called book that you were supposed to read in 2017 but didn't get to, so The Horse Dancer is now that book because I didn't have one, which actually worked out pretty perfectly. And so my sister, like the first time she ever showed interest in being on my channel, is going to be doing like videos with me. After every month I am going to be talking about the books that I've read, and so will my sister. A lot of them are the same ones, just we didn't even discuss it. I was just telling, she was listing out the prompts for me and I was telling her which books. I was like looking them up on Goodreads and Google, Amazon, all the things, and looking up the plots for borrowing them for the library. Hopefully they all come on time, but I was just listing out the books that I wanted to read, and she was like, really girl, like I picked the same one. Our minds just worked the same way. So hopefully we can read all the books. It's like one of our resolutions or goals for 2018, so I'm really excited to do that. It's always really great to have a book to read, but I'm nervous because school, and I'm a political science major, so that means a lot of reading for me. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Please let me know if you read any of them, or if you have your own recommendations, or even if you're doing the Pop Sugar 2018 reading challenge. I definitely am gonna have so much fun doing it. I feel like it might seem like a little bit of a chore just because there's so many books to read, and I don't know if the library will deliver them to me on time. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Is it next year? I don't know. Bye.
Oh, when it all, yeah, all falls down.
This the real one, baby.
I'm telling you,
Chi-Town stand up.
Oh, when
South side, we gon' set this party